Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HealthyXSundays podcast, where we bring you the most critical and actionable content in the nutrition and fitness space. Dave from Mind Muscle Pro and I, Kunal Jain, also known as Veg Diet Coach, are your hosts. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with an incredible guest, Mrs. Saswati Singh, a pioneer in special education and autism rehabilitation. Mrs. Singh's journey began when her own son was denied admission to 42 schools in Delhi, motivating her to take matters in her own hands. Since then, she has become a leading force in the field, having trained in special education and alternate therapies both in India and internationally. From establishing India's first group home for autism and related developmental disorders in Dehradun to receiving national and state awards for her outstanding contributions, Mrs. Singh's work has transformed the lives of hundreds of children and their families. Today, she joins us to share her inspirational journey, the challenges she has faced, and the innovative methods she's used to help children with autism thrive. Stay tuned for a conversation filled with insight, compassion, and a wealth of knowledge from this extraordinary advocate. So, ma'am, welcome to the show. Dave and I welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am.
I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you're audible. We can hear you well.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tremendous privilege for me to be here, and I must thank Mr. Sanjay Ganesh. I hope he's listening in, and he's the one who had put me on to Mr. Dev and Kunalji, and it's been a real privilege for me to be addressing this forum tonight, and I look forward to a very interactive session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks. So, ma'am, tell us about your journey in managing autism through nutrition. What first led you to explore dietary interventions?
Yeah, in short, I will say it's been a long journey actually. But my son at the time of birth had asphyxiation, and he had this hyperactivity and complete unmanageable thing that he had. But he was going to a mainstream school, but he got an epileptic fit in the when he was about 4.5 years old, which completely left him devoid of speech. And I mean, it was a very, very big shock, as parents with such children will, have also gone through the same journey. But the main thing is, like at that point of time, my son is now 35. Nobody was able to diagnose him. I mean, he was misdiagnosed. I don't blame anybody, because they regularly said it was ADHD, and in all the premier hospitals in Delhi. But when it came to education, he was already 6, and there were no schools which were willing to take him, as Mr. Kunal just explained. So I had no other option but to give up my job. I was principal of a school for a short stint. I was a senior biology teacher in Delhi and also in Calcutta. I was in mainstream teaching. I just gave up all of that. I said, why am I, teaching other people's children when my son does not have any schooling? And then he was not the only one. So, but this journey of looking for others like me, that taught me a lot. And in the process, when I opened my own school in my own house, which was the third floor of an MIG flat in Delhi, it was very, very difficult because I got all the severe cases. Obviously, I mean, when people came to know that here is a school which is taking, anybody who just came, I never refused. But my main thing was I was always training parents in whatever way I could. But at that point of time, when my journey from going from hospital to hospital, he had this constant constipation and some form of stomach related issues he always had. So that like made me go in deeper into research, and then I came to know about NIMH Secunderabad. I reached Dr. Rita Peshwaria. She was the first one who mentioned the word autism. But my son was diagnosed with atypical autism both at NIMHANS Bangalore and at NIMH Secunderabad. So he was not a born autistic, but he gradually went into autism after epileptic fits. So whatever it is, the symptoms are the same. I mean, the issues are the same. So the extreme hyperactivity, the constant, posturing, and he had this jumping from heights and running away. He's got lost 19 times. We did not know that he was actually running away from pain. It was only when I did the Option Institute course from Massachusetts that I came to know about the diet. Very first day, very first session, they mentioned that the diet has to be changed and wheat and milk just throw out of the window. This was their sentence. I would like to share with you that I have also presented with Ron Kaufman, who has been the inspiration of Options Institute. And he was our lecturer. So for us, it was a shocker, seeing and reading about his childhood, and he was extremely severe. And if he can come to this level, so, that there is something to do with the diet. So when I came back, that is the first thing I did. I threw milk and wheat out of the window. Now, my husband being from Haryana, he got, absolutely, shocked that, you're stopping all his food. So I said, well, it is not food for him, it is poison. So Lucretius, so many years before Christ, he had said that what is food to one person can be fierce poison to another. So this is something that, like I came to understand with my son, that after removing the foods, I gradually got the change in him. But the main thing was the conviction. Unless I did it 100%, unless I did it, stringently, I would not have got the results. And to do that, I had to take him away from the home situation, which was morning to night. It was only milk and only meat. And he used to snatch, rotis from my husband's, plate, and he used to pour the whole, saucepan of milk on himself from the fridge. He was absolutely, because it was stopped, the craving was even more over there. So it was necessary for me to create a infrastructure, something which was totally under my control. So that's when I went to Dehradun. But before that, at the age of when my son was 6 years old, and I had started this the my own school in my own house. 3 years after that, I applied for government funding, and Dr. Kiran Bedi, as the LG secretary, had given us government space. I was the founder president of Inspiration. I resigned only 2 years back before coming to Mysore, where I am presently located. So that school is still running, and it is one of the oldest and the most well known in West Delhi, where many of the children are totally free. But it is not only autism; it has all categories. So when I came to Dehradun in 2005 as Inspiration, it was India's first residential group home for autism. So I stayed with these children, and it was not a one-day affair. Right from when I was at Inspiration Delhi, I used to keep the children overnight, see what are the issues that can come, like try and analyze. And so it has been a gradual process. It was just not something that I did all of a sudden. So at Dehradun, I got very good support from my daughter's school, and the one of the premier schools of India. So I have been giving talks on the diet and how it has changed, because I saw whatever I did with my son, I did with other children. And then I saw it was working with everybody. So you all will be surprised to know that now I have parents, friends, and others who are all doing the diet. So when I talk about the diet, it is not the only thing. It has to be a holistic approach. So here I want to mention, the allergies are very, very important. I work a lot with the removal of the allergens from the body, because everybody's allergens are different. So it is not only the GFCF. There is a myth, oh, the GFCF doesn't work, and because people are not doing the other things. So it is not only GFCF. You have to look into other things that could be of significance, where the improvement of the autistic person or the child is concerned. So I have seen metal poisons. I have seen other medical issues, epilepsy, comorbid conditions, worms, stomach worms. All of these, have an additive effect on the behavior and the prognosis of the child or the person. So this was my whole journey, because When I heard this coming from the Option Institute, and we had this Ron Kaufman in front of us who was presenting and giving lectures. So that was so convincing, and it gave us a lot of hope. And I mean, we just sat and cried and cried and cried for one whole week, and we came out completely out of it, and we decided, no, we need to do and take every single child to their maximization. We don't know, we are not comparing, we don't want everybody to be Ron Kaufman, but the child should be comfortable. So I always, these are things I've always been talking about all these years, that I don't see any sense in, a revolver being totally loaded. Okay, why are we constantly pulling the trigger? So just because I love the child, and I, just one day, if I give my chocolate, that used to happen with my husband. Today is his birthday. Don't, deprive him of anything. But because of that one birthday, everybody would suffer for the next 6 months. So it didn't make any sense to me. So I became very, very strict on all of this, and I got very good results. And there are a lot of testimonials there on my YouTube. And I'm sure many of them have joined today, many of the parents whose children are now going to mainstream schools, because we caught them very, very early. So whatever I suffered with my son, and Dr. Rita Peshwaria in Secunderabad mentioned that it's a shame that at the age of 8, you came to know your son was autistic. So his diagnosis, he was misdiagnosed, and because he was atypical autism, so he gradually, went into complete, autistic features. So this was the whole thing, and the diet I swear by. And I have, trained myself in many of the other alternatives, but that is not the purview of today's. We are talking about the nutrition, and I can really say that, whatever we eat, we our behavior, our thinking, and others, it has a very, very, stark uh, impact. So this I can say, because mens sana in corpore sano, it's a sound mind in a sound body. That is very, very, a sentence which has constantly guided me in my journey with this nutrition. And by the way, I can even share that I had very severe ulcerative colitis, which I was able to address and cure myself only by changing the diet. So I was on very heavy medication, and that created my son's problem during childbirth. So I have my reservations against taking allopathy, more so because my son is very severely allergic to colors, dyes, and preservatives. So you can imagine, uh, every single allopathic medicine generally has colors. So I used to go from, hospital to hospital, doctor to doctor, and he was getting even worse. So I had to take up all of it. So that was my journey of why I tried the nutrition and the diet.
Right. You touched upon this point. These days, medicine is taken as food, but food is the medicine actually.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, how is autism spectrum disorder diagnosed these days?
Yeah, this is a very important question, especially for the new parents who have had their diagnosis. During pregnancy and others, there are no tests by which you can, diagnose autism. So it is very, very symptomatic. There are screening tables, and the psychiatrists and the psychologists who do the testings. There are, like the INCLEN and others, which have recently been introduced in India. So there are just these which goes by symptoms. Previously, it was the DSM-4. Now you have the DSM-5. So Asperger's has been separated out, and you can, the ones who are trained to do these tools are able to diagnose them. But the first initial 3 symptoms by which you can, like see that or suspect that a person could be having, or a child could be having autism, it is the communication and socialization, the play behavior, and sensory issues. These are very, very, different. Like if I go into a nursery class, I can just, spot out the red flags. So, like I have always said, it is very essential that when you see a crack on the wall, that you address it immediately, because there are certain things which after a certain age, it's very, very difficult to reverse or, work on the symptoms. So I would really say, instead of ignoring and pushing it under the carpet, it's always better to go to the right person and get a proper diagnosis, of the symptoms, and address it instead of, sort of wishing it away. So this is the way that, the diagnosis can be done. And I can say that there are very, very few people who can diagnose autism. So that is a difficulty. Many of the doctors don't even mention. And I have a lot of cousins who are doctors, and from them I came to know that they don't even have it anywhere in the syllabus. I mean, these are things which, are not given much importance. And as a result, Dr. Rita Peshwaria and NIMH, the National Institute, have been trying to get it across to pediatricians and others, because that is where the parents first will reach. So it is very essential that it should be, properly diagnosed and addressed. The early intervention does not have any substitute. So that's it.
Thank you. So, ma'am, you mentioned about like there are these 7-year windows.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch upon that a little?
Yeah, we follow a lot about the Anthroposophical Society of Europe and Rudolf Steiner. So these, developmental stages that you have, that uh, like every 7 years you get, there is a block which changes, and I say that a window closes. So below the age of 7, I am trying to, get it across to the parents that by removing the diet for 2-3 years, you are not depriving the child. In fact, you're doing the child a great, you know, uh, uh, favor, because unless that is done, the other therapies don't show any significant changes. So, I've seen parents desperately going from therapy to therapy, hoping that the child would be, one day, come out of it and the autism will not be seen. But what happens is that age goes past, and after that, you just have regret. So I really say that, it is very essential that 7 years, then 14 years, 21 years after, the whole 7-year block, the first 7 years and below is what I'm targeting at. And I'm trying to help parents, address that. So this is a part of the developmental stages where emotionally, psychologically, all this development, keeps changing.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, you had touched upon that nutrition plays a role in the behavioral and cognitive symptoms of autism. So
Yeah.
are there specific nutrients or food groups that are particularly beneficial?
First, before saying the beneficial one, I would first like to do the elimination. Can I touch on that?
Sure, please.
Yeah, it is the main thing is there are, because of the indiscriminate use of chemicals and insecticides and pesticides and all that, which has completely polluted our environment. And especially there is this book written by Dr. Vandana Shiva and her associates, which is called Poisons in Our Food. And then she writes the link between pesticides and diseases. So on the 29th of this month, I'll be doing a workshop with Dr. Khader, who's known as the Millet Man of India. And he talks, he got the Padma Shri also recently. So when we are looking at how, these nutrients can help you by removing the ones which could be having, contaminations and others, especially this recent research and others, which talks about the soya and the corn and others which have the glyphosate. Of course, wheat has that, the Roundup. So all of these have made it very difficult for the digestive process. And as a result, in a semi-digested form, when it enters the bloodstream, and when it passes through the brain and the the child is in a fog, like we say that, the child is in a fog. So they are not able to process, because proteins, these are high science proteins, which have to be broken down into the constituent amino acids. I'm talking about very simple biology, that all food nutrients have to be digested to a certain simpler form to be absorbed, to be assimilated into the blood. So the proteins have to be, broken down into the constituent amino acids, but in groups of amino acids, which are, long chains. When it remains together and you get the leaky gut and all of the other symptoms, when it passes through the brain, then you get the hyperactivity increases, the child is very uncomfortable, the aggression, because they are not able to express. So the only thing that you will have is, either they'll start blowing up and having meltdowns, or they'll completely withdraw. My son used to be running around like a ping pong ball all the time because he was so uncomfortable. Now I feel so guilty that, like I didn't know about the food, part of it. And we were feeding him everything because that's we thought that we were doing a big good thing by giving him to eat everything that he should be eating. So after knowing about all of this, when we withdrew the triggers, then we talk about the ones which will give you the good results. So the main thing is, we are talking about the microbiome in the gut. So if you have the good bacteria, and there is, like different types of microbiome constituents which are lacking in the autistic population. So this is actually a research which has been seen, and like there are certain markers which say that that the children with autism do not have that they lack in certain of these good bacteria. So those type of nutrition and those type of foods which can replenish this uh, you know gut microbes will definitely be beneficial. And we see the coming down of the child, like anyone who has been in my Dehradun center for more than a year, everybody has changed. So it is only one or two of them who had metal poisons and they had to be treated in a different manner. But there has been improvement across board with anybody who did the diet. So, like research says that about 50% of the autistic population have GI issues. But my take on it is more than, like what I have seen in the population that I've been working with over the last 30 years, that nearly 80% of them have GI issues. And I'm not only talking about autism anymore, I'm talking about everybody. So since I have been able to, cure my very, very severe ulcer, so I do swear by the diet.
Absolutely.
So, can you share some success stories where dietary changes made significant difference in individuals with autism?
Yeah, yeah. I will not be taking names, but I have had a husband and wife doctor couples whose children came to me um, at about 2.5 years. And when I explained and I showed them all my books, I have written an international books on the diet. Certain chapters I have been written by me. So they were, able to understand, and like it is very, very important for me that whoever holds the kitchen has to be trained. So when they did it and they found that this little child, in fact, the testimonial is there on the YouTube. This in 1 week started talking. So it is not a miracle, because whatever was there as in the way of his learning and cognition was removed, and in 5 months his vocabulary went up to more than 500. And today he's in mainstream school, and the schools don't even know he's got autism. He's coming first for all the Olympiads and the competitive exams, and it's absolutely fine. So I don't say they have been cured, because autism is a lifelong condition. Their way of thinking and others may be different. So even today, I was speaking to the mother, and she was saying that I know that he has autism and he would require help in certain things. But at least what I feel is, if I have at least helped one child that, no mother should suffer what I've been through, like because of wrong diagnosis and not having knowledge at that point of time. My son is totally gone. But if this child has, been able to be mainstreamed, it's a big thing. Then there is another child, again, an Air Force pilot's son. His testimonial is also there on the YouTube. Actually, many of the parents don't want to give testimonials. So, and I'm extremely thankful to these two who had come forward and given. This child also was referred to me by a very well-known neurologist from Gangaram Hospital. And he specifically said that Mrs. Singh will ask you to do the diet, but don't do the diet. So I just smiled and I said, then don't do it. Let your child be like this. So the mother caught on. She said, no, I will definitely stay back, because her husband was he was on a transferable job. So he had to go back. But she said, no, I found this thing. I'm going to stay back. In 6 months, he came back and found the child was totally changed. Today, that boy also is in mainstream school. Schools don't even know. And the mother used to go on asking the class teacher, is there any problem? Is there any problem? So the class teacher is asking, why are you saying a problem? I mean, he's completely fine. Well, he doesn't have any problem. So that, all of this, these are just two because it's there on the YouTube, but there are so many others. There's this little boy who was with me from Ahmedabad going to a mainstream school. There's this girl who stayed with me for 2 months. The mother came for training. She understood. She did the same thing. Today she's in mainstream. She didn't have any speech at all. After doing that diet, after, for 2 months when she was with me, within that 2 months, her speech came, her non-stop crying went away, this roaming around, aimlessly, everything went, and she's now going to a mainstream school. She's just one among the many. So, there are so many, but especially all of this, parents who are listening and who have younger children, all of these have come, round about 7-8 years or below. So the ones who have come to me, the adults, they have also improved. All of them have gone home, but I trained the parents, because whoever holds the kitchen has to understand that when your child's food is being made, there should be no contamination. Cross-contamination is a very, very, big problem, because you think you're doing the diet and then somewhere, the allergens come again and you will not get the expected results. So that is my message.
Right. So, like some wonderful stories there. So, what are some of the common dietary challenges faced by individuals on the autism spectrum, and how can families address them? You touched upon wheat. So,
Yeah.
likewise, what are the other common dietary challenges?
I would like to share over here. I have been sitting and trying to understand this whole thing with some of the topmost Ayurvedic doctors, homeopaths, and others who are doing alternative therapies, and with my own, experience. The allergy panel test, which sees the IgE, allergies. Besides the wheat, the gluten, and the casein, the milk casein, excepting for ghee, nothing else is allowed, because casein will be there in all dairy products, including biscuits, which use butter. So, like, it is very, very important. Like, everybody says, oh, we are doing the diet and we've stopped the milk, but then we are taking curd, then we are taking cheese, then we are taking biscuits. So people don't understand it. It is, like one doctor's prescription. It said GF, CF, SF, SF, and CF. So gluten-free, casein-free, sugar-free, soya-free, and corn-free. So these 5 have to be removed. Besides that, with the Ayurvedic doctors, we sat and did all the foods which had, gas forming properties. So it's like the mooli, matar, then both the gobis, like which gives you, bloating and others. So we say anything which is heavy should be had before the afternoon. So I not only talk about what to eat, but when to eat. That is also very, very important. It's called the circadian rhythm. There is a certain, a body rhythm that, certain things should be had at certain times. For the autistic children, I found, like after the afternoon, if you have any raw food, whether it is salads or fruits, it gives, you get acidity and the child becomes very uncomfortable, and then the behaviors escalate. So in my 18 years of my journey staying with, severely autistic adults, mainly there have been some children who also have come during the day, but the residential one where the person stayed with me night and day, and I stayed with them night and day. It was not that I was staying somewhere else and came and just saw them and went away. I was living with them. And that has been a learning experience for me. And, seeing the child, tweaking the diet by, how to introduce anything. So anything that is gas forming, that can have acidity, and if it is an allergen to the child. I had this 8-year-old boy who had come. He was a police officer's son from Haryana, and he was extremely hyperactive, running around in circles, screaming, shouting. I mean, he was completely out of control. So I said, okay, let's wait. There are very simple tests that I recommend. And after doing that, we found that he had so many allergies. He was allergic to all pulses. He was allergic to wheat, and all of that came in the allergy test itself. So coming from the Haryana background, they were having, the rajma, chana, all of these are very, very heavy for autistic young kids. So we generally say, try and keep it as simple as possible, especially right up to the afternoon. The night dinner should be really light, something, and should be had earlier in the day, so that the children, before going to sleep, they will not have any of the issues. So children who are eating late in the night, high protein, high size proteins late in the night, those who have non-veg and others after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I've seen that the parents perpetually complain that my child till 1 o'clock is not sleeping, and then, we are not able to get up in the morning, and or all of that. So it has been a learning experience, because I shared a lot with the parents. So, the time of the day is also equally important, and, what you're eating, and combinations of foods also, it's these, I do very individualistic, and, it should be curated, because every state has different types of food. And so I have been working, with the diet in, with clientels in Bangladesh and Dubai, and, their cousins in Australia and New Zealand. So everybody wants to know exactly, in the Indian context, if it is a particular state, what are the things that we can have. And so I prefer to do that very, very, specifically and individualistically. That's why if anybody wants to do the diet, I always say, please, talk to me separately, because this is not a one size fits all. So unless you do the allergy panel test, you don't even know what are your allergies. So it is very essential to remove all the allergies. Unless you do that, only gluten and casein will not give you results. So this is something that I can really tell the parents.
So,
Right.
is there any difference? Like, is this doable for vegetarians, or is it just like,
Yeah, because I talk about removal of all high size proteins. I myself, I was a Bengali, and I was having 4 eggs a day because I was a player, and my ulcerative colitis was basically because of the high protein diet, and I didn't know. So after, my husband was from Haryana, he was totally vegetarian. So as I changed my diet, I found all these changes. So I talk about high size proteins because uh, it is, I wouldn't say it is more genetical. It is mutations that happen in mitochondria, in ribosomes, small changes by which, the capacity to break down the proteins into its constituent amino acids. Like if it is an array of enzymes A, B, C, D, E, some may have C missing, some may have A missing. That is why no two autistic children are alike. Everybody's issues could be different. And if you see the sensory issues, some may be hypo to, sound, some may be hyper. Some could be, hypo to touch, and some could be, hyper to touch. So everybody's symptoms are different, and it is a combination of a number of things. So if you have seen one autistic child, you've just seen one autistic child. You can't just compare anybody with anybody. So it's really very important for us as parents to see if the child is not comfortable with certain things. Just because I love to eat it and I want to give it to my child. And, and in the long run, with age, things really get worse. So this is something that I can, really vouch for, because I've worked for 30 years with special kids. And before that, I was teaching even there also, like we had these slow learners and others. So we hadn't known at that point of time that, that food can matter such a lot. But after that, when I realized and I've seen the changes, and not only with autism, I can even, talk about the schizophrenia and others, which also could be due to changes in the gut microbiome. All of that makes a lot of impact.
Right, ma'am. So, ma'am, you spoke about gluten-free, soy-free, etc. So, what is the science behind these approaches and how effective are these approaches?
Uh, I have been, working with many of the top doctors who have been specialists in metabolic issues, and they talk about, how uh, uh, this when there is this, certain foods which gradually, wear out the stomach lining and the intestinal lining when you carry on, giving the same type of food, which is for them a poison. So then you have these, gaps which are formed. So you have the leaky gut syndrome. So what happens is certain things which should be eliminated from the body is going into the bloodstream. So unless you remove those, you will not get very significant changes just by doing only therapies. And this I carry on repeating. I mean, therapies is very, very important. Without therapies, if you do not do therapies, things get even worse. But if you want to get any significant changes with the therapies, you also have to do. So I call this a diet therapy. I call myself a diet therapist, because without this, this forms the base of the pyramid. If you have, a pyramid, this forms the very first step. So it is very important that, unless you remove the triggers, and it carries on, accumulating in the body, so you get the inflammation gets worse. So the posturing, some children have this, they are holding on to the stomach, and so they give indications that we are not comfortable. So it is very important. And I always compare, if somebody has diabetes and you love that person so much that you're feeding him rasgullas every day, so the same thing is happening to our children. So the science behind all of this is that it makes, it becomes a vicious cycle. The more you're taking, the more damage, and then more, the leaking things getting into the blood. So it carries on, escalating. And after some time, medicines and others will not work. I know of people, children having Crohn's and others, but they are not willing to do the diet. So only with medications. I mean, how long will you be stuffing, chemicals into the body? So those again will have other side reactions, and then you're addressing the whole gamut of, one thing creating another, and another, and the symptoms getting even worse. So,
Right. So, you mentioned about gut health many times. So, how important is gut health in managing autism symptoms, and what dietary practices can improve gut health? Like,
uh, for the gut health, one important thing is removal of allergies, removing of, triggering foods, and putting in alongside, when you remove this, alongside you put in the good, supplements and others which is required. And especially children who are uh, given indiscriminately, the antibiotics and others, where the stomach, the gut microbes are, affected. That is, a very important point that that many of the doctors don't prescribe the enterogermina and the econom and all of these that we've been using with our children whenever they have to be given antibiotics. So, it is very important that, when you're giving the food, to keep the balance, because like I'm talking about my own son, even though he was taking milk, but he had osteoporosis. I mean, it was not going where it should have gone because the body is not able to process it properly. So by just feeding them, we are not ensuring that it is going to the right place. So it is very important to be with, people who are working with nutrition and others, and, uh, to see what are the supplements and others which can uh, ensure that the right things are going into the right places. So like if you're having, say, calcium and vitamin D, it is very essential that vitamin K also goes. Otherwise, it will not go into the bones. It will go, and it can create kidney stone. So this I was just discussing with one of my doctors only recently. So he said whenever you give vitamin D, it is very essential. It should be the vitamin D with K. So Mr. Sanjay Ganesh, who has referred me to this, he's the one who first had told me. So my son is now taking all of that. So when we are doing the tests now, we see that many of the corrections have happened. I mean, he was deficient in so many. He had osteoporosis when he was somewhere around 8, 9 years. And he was having so much of milk, you can't imagine, because my husband was from Haryana and he had this morning to night, it was whole day steeped in milk. So this, we need to think, wisely, and be with the right persons, because just by, our ancestors ate this and they had, good health, and, for us also, we do the same. I don't think that works, because the way we have contaminated our environment, the present day generation children really have very, very severe issues. And I have been working a lot with schools and colleges, because they are going to be the future mothers and fathers. And this fast food culture, with all the wrong things that are going into the body, and especially the seed oils, all of this, there is a lot of mention everywhere. I mean, it's there all over in the internet and others. So if we understand that, once in a while it's fine, but as a everyday thing, it will all definitely have, a lot of side effects.
And so there is some new research going on to something called as the fecal microbiota transplant,
Yeah.
right? So if we correlate between what you said about the gut health and about uh, about what this research is about, I think
Yeah.
it should be very promising.
Yeah, yeah. But the main thing is, the donor has to be, like they say, possibly your cousins or somebody who belong to the same family, and especially, exactly, I don't know the full science behind it, but definitely there is going to be investigation before the transplant. So this is a recent thing which has been there in a lot of papers and others which have been used. So I think there has been cases which have been very promising. So I haven't tried, so I I won't be able to say much on this.
So how do parents identify if their children has some sort of food intolerance or sensitivity in case of autism or in otherwise also?
Um, when I talk to parents, I always say, na, you really have to become like researchers. There is something called the elimination diet, which I also learned from Option Institute. Uh, Everything does not come, and the IgE test is just one immunoglobulin. We have more than 100 in the body. So just by doing one IgE test, and we say, okay, this allergy was not there, so my son can, or my child can have it. So it is very important to understand that, there are certain things that you can't do testing with. But like I have found for my own son, any yellow colored food, like the papaya, mango, even carrots, he is not able to digest. It just comes out undigested in the feces. So, like uh, parents should be very vigilant, especially if the child is suffering and cranky and having a lot of discomfort and gas and constipation or diarrhea. Any of the signs, like that the gut is not okay. The parents need to be very vigilant and, discuss all of this with their uh, doctors and see if they can help by removing these for some time, and then gradually, like anything that I start with my son, I have to start from a very, very small amount. So it's a big challenge. I'm all the time tweaking and tweaking, and I have to really start this, but always in a very small amount. So when we introduce or we withdraw, we always do it in very small amounts so the body can tolerate. So that is very important, that the parents should become very vigilant, especially if the child is showing discomfort, stomach discomfort. And another thing I talk about is the worms, stomach worms. Many people, even doctors' children, when I spoke to them, have never done the culture of the stool and the urine, which I talk about should be an annual thing. Very, very simple things which can, make a lot of difference in your child's behavior. And because if they have worms, it's very, very uncomfortable. And the health of the child will perpetually remain, affected. So, yeah, these are some of the ways, the parents should be, like researchers. So by seeing all of these symptoms, you can make out that certain foods, whenever you're giving certain foods, it's having a same effect over and over again, then those should be removed. It may not be coming in the IgE allergy test, but it needs to be controlled. And I would suggest that parents look into Dr. Mercola and the Feingold diet. They talk about these phenols and oxalates, salicylates. There are certain classes of food which certain children people are not able to process. So there's something called the nightshade plants, the potato, the brinjal, tomato, capsicum, all of these come under the nightshade plants. It's there, the information is all there in the internet. So, it would be very interesting to see how the diet can impact your health and as a result your behavior also, because it can lead to aggression, or it can lead to depression. I have this particular boy in Bengal. The mother, I hope she is listening in. He was about 13, and whenever he would look at the stairs, he would start crying. So she rang me up that my son is having this problem, behavioral issue. I said, okay, first you give me these tests. So when they did the vitamin D, it was extremely low. So he was actually having pain when he was climbing the stairs. So I would really tell, parents that unless you rule out the medical issues, do not declare everything as autism. There could be so many other things, like we are not able to decide, and then the schools say, oh, don't look, just ignore, it's just a behavior. Everything cannot be wished away unless you actually have done the test and have ruled out medical issues. I do not declare anything as autism. So that needs to be very, very clear, that there are very, very simple tests which can be a lifesaver to the child, and can make a lot of difference. In fact, it can be the game changer also. So I have written this chapter in this book, which is called The Autism and ADHD Diet, written by Barry Silverberg. And she has been able to, heal her child. We never use the word cure because it's not a disease, so there's nothing to cure. So her son was able to be retrieved only with the diet. So she has given the caption of, I'll just show the book. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is called the Autism and ADHD Diet. And it says a step-by-step guide to hope and healing by living gluten-free and casein-free and other interventions. So it is just not one thing. It has to be a holistic approach. So unless you look at everything together, I mean, I talk about a tree when it is in a sapling stage, it requires to be covered with a, iron grid. And once the tree is independent, then you take it off. It's the same thing with these children. Especially if you catch them young, there is a lot where the children can really be can be mainstreamed. That is very important, that, they need not be so severely affected like my son, because he didn't get the right interventions at the right time. So getting the right, doctor at the right time is very, very important. You may have got the doctor, but at the wrong time. The time may have been good, but the right, person wasn't there. So, these are things that parents need to think over.
Right, ma'am. So, ma'am, for parents looking to make dietary changes, where should they start? Are there any key steps or guidelines to follow? Are there any official guidelines?
I would like to share over here. I mean, I'm not blaming or, I'm just putting a statement across. There were 4 of us in Delhi at that point of time when I was working in Delhi, who spoke about the diet, and they just wrote on the prescription that you do the diet, but nobody said how. So it is very, very important that, it is important to know that milk, that is the casein, takes about 1 month to 3 months to flush from the system. And gluten takes 6 months to 9 months, even 1 year. So today, if you have a biscuit, and I've had, grandparents and others in my Delhi school, it doesn't matter, let Mrs. Singh say, you just have, it is only one biscuit, what does it matter? But they don't understand, I'm talking about the prescription of this particular doctor. I won't take any names. And he writes GFCF, SFSFCF, and 100%. So it cannot be 99.99%. It has to be 100%. So you have to ensure that the last day, you gradually, I always suggest that you should start removing the milk. And especially, I have done workshops and others in Dehradun, in all the topmost, in Uttarakhand, with the topmost hostel schools, which are there in Nainital and others. And the suggestions that I generally give, that even if you don't want to completely change, if somebody doesn't have autism, I'm talking about even the normal population, that if you're going to a classroom where you're going to study and you are having to do mental work, it's better not to have anything to do with milk. So, that is the first suggestion that I give, that you do not, when you're going to study and you're going to college, do not take any milk products. So, it affects the attention, it affects you're in the haze. I've had students themselves saying, that ma'am, you are correct, because once we stop the milk, we are able to pay attention to what the professor was saying. Otherwise, everything was going above our heads. We were not able to concentrate. And so, even the canteens, many of the colleges and universities in Uttarakhand, where I have been working, on a consistent basis, they have even changed the food in the canteens. So, I can just suggest it's up to the people to do it for themselves and actually see. So the parents, my first suggestion would be that you stop gradually remove, and it is not difficult. I say you take out 1 spoon and put 1 spoon of water, then take out 2 spoons and then put 2 spoons of water, depending on how severe the child is, how small the child is, what is their understanding and comprehension. And then gradually you can say, nowadays the milk is becoming like this, can we stop it? And, just stop it. And my thing is that more than 80% of the children actually don't want to have milk before going to school. And it was a very big eye-opener for me, where I was teaching in Delhi in one of the premier schools over there, that during the assembly time, I was absolutely shocked. One after the other, the children are just fainting. They're just dropping. I was wondering, I said, what is this? I've never seen anything like this. I was teaching in Calcutta in my own school. I've never seen this phenomena before. So because of my own interest in biology, I would go to the sick room and ask them, what did you have in the morning? Milk. What did you have in the morning? Milk. Everybody just had only pure milk, and they were sent to school. So many of these children, this is even before I, came to know about the diet per se, but it was very, very interesting. Like, how can you only give milk and just send somebody, the nausea, the feeling of nausea and others is always, I've seen this with the children. Many of them go, and actually have vomiting episodes. So, if you gradually remove the milk, it is not difficult. It is just our mindset And I used to tell my husband also, if somebody is ill and has diabetes, does it mean that all of us, stop the sugar? No, it's only the person who's being affected. Let them do it. It doesn't make sense for everybody to, stop it. So if this child is not able to process the casein, then why are we just stuffing him with something which the body is not able to accept? So many of the children, in fact, they absolutely refuse. They cry, and then they are absolutely forced into it, and then you get all the reactions in class, and then you get a call from the school saying that you come and take your child, either he's pooped in the pants or he's having a meltdown or something or the other. So once you remove the milk, you get about 50% changes. Then you start with the gradually also you start with the gluten. So I generally say don't stop both together, because for the child, all of a sudden you're changing everything, it becomes very difficult for you. So do it very slow, but take a target that within so and so month, 31st of this month, I will stop this. And then gradually work with the next. So as you remove the one, bad thing, and then you start, introducing the good things, you'll gradually see the change, and then you will be convinced, and you will be able to, work with your child, and you can have social stories and others by which you can explain, see, if you take this, you don't feel good, so we are not going to have it. I would like to mention over here this Air Force pilot's son. The mother taught him, in such a way that if you have this, you are going to be ill. So, and after this, you won't be able to go to school and play and whatever you like doing. So he's been taught that he would go for his friend's birthday, and then he would turn around to the mother and say, now you give me my cake. So the mother used to bake and take the cake themselves. I've had groups of students in different schools in Delhi who were in touch with me. So they got into their own groups, and they had these particular bakeries who used to have the gluten-free options for pizza and others. So the school used to give provide the food, but this group of parents, they used to get their own food from home. So it is not impossible. I mean, if you give the allergy tests and others to the school and say very strictly that whatever comes in this child's tiffin is to be given to him. So many of the schools have cooperated. And if this, if the parents, do the advocacy and others properly, so I don't think any school will refuse. So this is my message to the parents.
Right, ma'am. So how do you handle picky eating, which is common amongst children with autism, and while still ensuring like they get proper nutrition?
Yeah, my son was a picker eater. I mean, he used to eat everything, including boot polish and phenyl and naphthalene, and everything was going into his mouth. He just could not. Even the first time I came to Nimhans, he picked up the Lifebuoy soap. Anything red, he would eat up. So I had this major problem. He used to open my bag and eat up lipstick. So I stopped, putting, sindoor and lipstick and everything possible that he could eat. So picker eating for my son, I would like to share, it only went when I did the deworming. So picker eating is also related to the gut and the food that is given. So if you remove the allergies, many of the children, the picker eating also went. You don't have to do behavior modification over there. It automatically, they start rejecting. In fact, I had this boy who was absolutely hooked on to Lays, and he was with me for a month, and the parents came with the Lays packet, and he just pushed it aside. So when they don't get something for a limited amount of a period or for a given period, then they realize that maybe I don't feel good inside. So then they don't. So there have been parents who have addressed all of this, and it's not impossible, because I was, for 18 years I was running this group home where everybody was on. Our group home was the only group home in the whole of India who was doing the diet stringently for everybody. So, and I had to explain to the parents, I'm not starving your child, I'm giving them extremely healthy food. And when, the children who were obese, they lost about 25 kilos. This boy who came at 90 kilos, he came down to 75, 70. he automatically his personality improved, his physical health improved. So, otherwise he was, every change of season, he was coughing so badly. All of that went, the not only the behavioral issues, it's many of the health issues, like the parents themselves would say, every month, 4 or 5 times we are running to the doctor. So I never had to go to any doctor because we had in-house, we had, so many good Ayurvedic doctors and others in their room, and we avoided allopathy unless it was absolutely essential. So that's the thing.
Right, ma'am. Just a time check. So we are done with 1 hour. Do you have a little bit more time so we can ask some more questions?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, ma'am. So what role do supplements play in managing autism symptoms? And are there any that are particularly helpful?
Uh, I can just share what I've been doing with my son, and thanks to Mr. Sanjay Ganesh, and he's been in touch with other people, because my son has very severe stomach issues. So there are, a couple of families in Kerala, his own son and others. So, whatever worked with them, we shared. So I do high supplementation with magnesium, zinc, because all of these things that my son is on very restricted diet because of his stomach cramps, which still has not been, we've been able to address that. We're still working on it. This only over the last few months, few years, he's started this, alternative stomach cramps, and then he's completely fine. So many of the doctors are not able to understand. They say it's a nerve thing. I said, well, if it is nerve, then how is it that 3 or 4 days is completely fine? So actually it was worms, so, for everybody it is different. So the supplementation is very important, that even if we are giving in the food, that may not be, enough to, for that particular child. So this is very, very specific. I've seen he's taking all the vitamins on a regular basis, D, B, C, then the supplementations with zinc and magnesium we are doing on a regular basis. I have not been able to do any of the oils, the omega and others. I still have not been able to introduce. So, this is important, but it is good. It is always good to do with somebody who has the knowledge of these things, because indiscriminately to do this, I wouldn't suggest. So I'm sure you all will be able to help in this thing better, since you are already in the line.
Right, ma'am. So have you seen any emerging research on nutrition and autism that excites you or suggests new directions for treatment?
Just today, I had asked a friend of mine who's in Dehradun, and Juliet Reynolds. She's also written, books, and she's working with autism. She just sent me today, and I was just reading just before I started this podcast, that there are about 31 markers, you have, which is missing in the autistic population. So the microbiome, the gut is a very, very important thing, and it is called the second brain. So whatever is in the gut will affect the brain. That is well known. So this research is still on, and of course, we've been looking at regressive autism, where it is a very controversial topic, but I need to talk about it. The vaccines, per se, more than that, it is the stabilizers and others which are used, chemicals and metals which are used, which could, lead to thing. And I am very, very sure that my son, he had this MMR, the DPT, ever since he started that, he had very high fever, and then he got this epileptic attack. So many of the children and many of the parents that I've been talking to have been saying that, the child has developed normally, and then all of a sudden there is this, regression. So this is called regressive autism, where the chemicals and heavy metals, all of this play a big role. So research is along all of these lines, and especially chemicals and pesticides and others which are getting into the through the mother's milk into the child, and it just creates all this changes in the body. So yeah, I mean, there's so much, and it's very frightening actually, because autism is nearly like an epidemic now. It's 1 in 50, where some 20 years back it was 5 in 10,000 or 1 in 10,000, something like that. So.
And what advice would you give to parents or caregivers who feel overwhelmed by the idea of making significant dietary changes?
This is something, as I said, that you love a person so much with, having diabetes, and you're giving him rasgulla every day. So this is a choice which you have to make, because unless you really understand that you are not doing your child a favor by giving him, things which are going to make him uncomfortable in the stomach. So if you understand that it is not doing him good, it needs to be taken out. And till you do it and you understand, of course, we are always here to help if anybody wants, to do it, because as I said, it is very, very, customized. It's not one size fits all. So I really talk about the diet when I'm, an open forum, that, this is what you should do. So it needs, first, you need to first understand. I'll talk about this particular, I think Smita is listening in, this family in Mysore. And this boy came to me, 18, very good looking, tall, handsome, 18-year-old. And he was constantly drooling. So I could see the discomfort that he was having. So I looked at the mother. I said, how much of milk products does he take? He said, yeah, he takes. So I said, you can just address this just by stopping the milk, because Dr. Douglas Graham's book, the 80-10-10 diet, he mentions, and I have it in many of my presentations. He says milk drinking is pathogenic. And if milk and milk products were discontinued today, millions of people would cease to suffer illnesses and pathologies within a short period. He's talking about people, he's not talking about autism. He's talking about everybody. So this boy, I mean, the mother took about, a week to convince him. And now it is, like if you see him, he's in, I think 2 months, he's lost about 6 kilos. And he's already, his drooling has gone more than 88-90%. And his improvement you can immediately see in his personality and others. So for the parents, unless you do it, you don't know whether it works or doesn't work. So if it's just, your conviction that, yes, I want to help my child, and we have so many examples where all these children who have been coming to me and everybody has improved. I wouldn't say cured. I wouldn't say they are out of autism. No, but everybody is improved. And the main thing is to see the smile, I've seen these children crying constantly, distress. So when you see this, then you find, okay, like I've done good. So this feeling that, like I have been able to give some relief to my own child, I think it is very, very important. So
Right.
yeah, Smita has given, my son in 2 months has almost stopped 90%. Yeah.
So, how can the broader community support nutritional approaches in autism care? I'm talking about schools and caregivers and all that.
Yeah, it is very, very important for the mother over here to be an advocate and say that, my child has, this allergy and should be kept separate during the food time. You can keep him separate. You're not depriving him of anything. You're doing him a big favor. You're doing her a big favor by not giving those things. So, like you think it is, the child will be yeah, without giving a chocolate, and, you're depriving them. No, it's you're doing them a big favor by, keeping them healthy. So the society plays a very, very big role. And as I said, I had a number of students in mainstream schools in Delhi who were coming to me during the holidays in Dehradun. So I used to speak to the class teachers, and I used to tell them that during the break time, can you put these few children separately, so that they are having the same thing, but their food is different, and it should not be mixed with the ones which are having gluten and casein. So it is not impossible, if you know the biology behind it, that it will do harm to your child. So it is very, very essential. So I know of these parents who came to me, this particular girl who was with me for 2 months and went back, and the shadow teacher uh, by mistake gave an Oreo which was being distributed during the you know birthday party. So the knowledge, and that is why I do so much of advocacy. Knowledge is empowering, and I always say ignorance is bliss. If you don't know, oh fine, doesn't matter, one chocolate doesn't matter. So you don't know, how much harm it can cause to that child. Because I used to see with my son, one birthday, and then for 6 months he was, in bed, this doctor and this doctor, and he had complete red, vermilion red mouth, because he was allergic to all these allopathic medicine, the colors of the allopathic medicines. So there are so many symptoms, especially mouth ulcers and others. I can see somebody had, I think, has mentioned over here in the chat. So this is very common, and unless you know how to do it, it's difficult. So I take every family, I do hand holding till they understand, and many of them have come and stayed with me to train. I had Dr. Lakshmi Prasanna, who's now in Australia. She came and stayed with me in Dehradun a number of times to, explain how to do the diet. I have been following Dr. Khadir even when I was in Dehradun. So when I came here, I was in Saraswati Puram. I was close to where he's staying. So I went and met him, and I definitely would be putting my son with treatment with him. So without doing medications, only by changing the diet and others, how you can help the child, I think that should be the best. Because stuffing chemicals into one part of the body to cure one disease, you're, you know, creating a problem somewhere else. So right now, with 30 years of the epileptic medicine that my son is taking, his kidney and others have been affected. So this is going to happen. I mean, you can't avoid. So it's up to the parents to take a call on that.
So the last question we have is, what myths about nutrition and autism would you like to debunk for our audience?
Myths, like everybody says, oh, it doesn't work, like doctors but it is the parent community, and I've been in touch with more than 1,000 of parents when I did the Option Institute course. From that time, there are thousands of parents who are can vouch for it. So like by doing the diet, the doctors will scare you. Well, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, like you have deficiency somewhere. But if you do it knowingly and understandingly, that is very, very important. Knowledge is empowering. It is very important that before you do anything, you understand how to do it, and in what way you can maximize the benefits. That is very important.
Right. So thank you. We have asked all the questions, and thanks for answering them. And now the audience can switch on their cameras and unmute themselves if they want to ask any questions.
I think there are a few questions in the chats.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Let's go through those.
So, one Mrs. Sophia had asked a question. So, what vitamin D tablets can be given My son is epileptic and taking Calcimax 500 every day along with vitamin D3 once a month. Does following diet improve seizures?
Uh, Mr. Sanjay Ganesh, are you there?
I don't think so. I don't
He's
think
not
he.
there.
Mhm.
Okay. About the seizures, I can mention particular cases that by stopping the milk and the casein, there's this girl who was 18-year-old and she used to get 7 to 8 epileptic, like episodes in a day. After about nearly a year, she used to only get one just before she used to get up from sleep. And it really, and she's not the only one. I've had a number of other parents who they got very good results by stopping the casein. So the seizures, like it, as I said, every child is different. You need to do it and see whether it helps. So
So if I may add,
yeah.
I've had a few success with cases on what we call a keto diet, which is like
Uh-huh.
higher in fat, so it helps with the brain functioning. Higher in fat, moderate protein, and very low carbohydrates.
Uh-huh. Today I got a doctor from Bangalore who rang up, and 5-year-old child, son who has both her children have the same very rare genetical condition, and they are on the keto diet. And the elder one had seizures. The younger one is much better because from the beginning they put the child on the keto diet. So she was talking that he cannot take any carbohydrate at all. They are purely only on proteins, and so all of this has to be done under guidance from people who have already done it. And I think it is more of a trial and error. You need to do for some time, like the elimination diet. The elimination diet, like it talks about, if you suspect certain thing is not suiting your child, you give that for one whole week, and then you stop for another few days, and then you suddenly give. So if you see a recurring of the symptoms, then you can say that maybe taking away that for a 6 months period or a 1 year period, and gradually reintroduce and see whether you're getting the results. All of this, like it's very, very trial and error.
So I think we missed the first part of the question, which was uh, she's having Calcimax 500, which is the calcium, along with vitamin D3 once a month. She's
Huh.
asking what vitamin K tablets, like we mentioned about vitamin K2, can be given. That's her question.
I'm giving my son this combination which has the vitamin D3 with the K. So I don't know whether vitamin K tablet, how much to give, and if you can, have any nutritionist or anybody who can suggest this. Because Calcimax, D3 once a month. So how much is the D3, that
Yeah,
vitamin?
so
This, I think it's better if you take a separate session for me.
yeah.
Sure. Another question is, my son is 5 years old, autistic. He gets red spots on the inside of his lips, and he bites his lips and they start bleeding. He cannot eat at that time. Vitamin B has been given, vitamin B complex, but that is not helping.
Mhm.
I put him on milk-free, gluten-free diet. He still suffers from stomach problems. He still has the habit of picker eating. Suggest me ways to help my child and what tests to be done.
This is a typical case where IgE allergy test panel has to be done. So by removing the milk, and I'm sure if I talk to them further, I'll find out there is some milk casein, hidden casein going somewhere. So unless I know, like when the parents say we are doing the, gluten-free and casein-free, and when I talk to them, then I find that they are taking biscuits. Marketed biscuits will always have butter. So we had our own bakery where we had biscuits which we made from ghee. So, like it's very, very essential to know that there are a number of places, especially toothpastes and others, where you can have gluten and other things going in. So when you say that you're doing the casein-free and gluten-free diet, you actually need to reevaluate. Because if the child is having red spots and inside, my son used to have vermilion red mouth with all these colors, allergies that he used to have. So, I think Debarati Maiti, you can contact me separately. We can, I think we need to do a few more tests and others before we can decide.
Yeah. She has shared her details with us. We'll pass them along to you, ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a question from one Mr. Manoj Singh. So his question is, can we give natural sweets such as dates? I don't know if it's in the I don't have any context here. It's in the context of autism or something else. But question is, can we have natural sweets such as dates?
See, all of this, as I said, you have to do an elimination test. If you carry on giving dates and you find that the child is not comfortable, because that is why I mentioned the Feingold diet and Dr. Mercola. They talk about these classes of foods. So you need to do research on your own, like if you can just give dates every day and see if there are any changes. If you see changes, then withdraw. It's as simple as that. So the elimination diet, like you can just do it on your own. Like doing certain classes of foods, you find that the child is not comfortable, then just don't give for some time. Then you can reintroduce in very small amounts, like if you start giving only once a week, then you start giving twice a week, with a gap. Then you can do alternate days and then you introduce. So everything should be started very small and very, spaced out. And then, even the withdrawal should also be done similarly. So all of a sudden, if you give something, the child can be very, very uncomfortable.
The next question is from my friend Dr. Shang Gupta. How can we differentiate whether the child is having ADHD or autism? Is the speech therapy and occupational therapy helpful in these children?
As I said, therapies are important because without therapies, the child will slide even further. And ADHD and autism is two completely different things. Since you're mentioning it, my son constantly by Gangaram Hospital in Delhi was diagnosed as ADHD. As I said, at that point of time, there were very few people who could even diagnose autism. So I don't blame anybody. There is a very fine line, but autism itself has these three very clear markers, that the socialization, eye contact, then the communication, what they want to say, that will not be there, which is not going to be the case with ADHD. So ADHD will be, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, where the child could be just hyperactive, but the eye contact and others will be, at par. So the symptoms are very, very different. So I mean, I can spot an autistic child miles away, but I think for normal, regular teachers and doctors and pediatricians, I've been, my son has been uh, told by the president of the Delhi Medical Association as cerebral palsy, and he used to be walking on one brick wall. He had such good balance. So most of the people don't even understand the differences between all of these, autism and cerebral palsy and multiple disability, mental handicap. So ADHD is otherwise the child will be having normal markers. There'll be no stark difference. But for autism, you will find either that the eye contact may not be there, stereotypic language will be there, and especially in small children, the repeatedly playing with rotating things like Ron Kaufman, he mentions he used to do a lot of that. So the autism has many typical, stereotypical, and then the stimming, like. So ADHD child may not have all of that. So I hope it answers your query.
I think the last question on the chat is there a specific allergy panel test you recommend?
Many of the labs say they do it, that we have the tests, but I can just mention because when I was in Dehradun, they were sending it to Lucknow. So it was the Chandan Laboratories. And in Mysore here, I think Sangeeta is on the chat. Sangeeta could mention there is this lab which sends the sample to Ahmedabad. So it'll give you the exact names and what foods to remove. So it becomes easier for it's very easy to analyze. But others who mention like that we are doing the tests, and then they'll say that the child doesn't have any allergies, and when you do the tests in these two labs, then you're getting so many others. So like I prefer to follow that particular lab where the names of the medicines and others are given, and it is called the complete allergy panel. So it's not just a number. You have the names of the foods, the inhalants, and they also give the antibiotics. So those who want to do the test, you can get back to me.
Right. Are there any other questions before we wind up? Dave, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to add something like I want to say like people should, especially vegetarians, should get your vitamin B12 tested. Like I see this deficiency very, very common, and it can come up in different forms, and it could mimic autism in sometimes, among a lot of other problems. So if you are a vegetarian, please get B12 for yourself and your child tested, because it could do irreversible damage if it sustains for the long term.
Yeah, this is an important point here.
I think Sangeeta ma'am has added two labs. One of them is Ravi Diagnostics,
This is
Irvin
in
Road.
Dehradun. Sorry, Mysore.
Another one is Endocrine and Allergy Laboratory, Ahmedabad.
Ahmedabad. Yeah.
Okay. So I think if there are no other questions, we want to say a big thank you, ma'am, for
Yeah.
coming to this podcast and sharing such valuable insights. Um, there's so much knowledge shared today, and it's been such a learning with you, ma'am. Thank you. We love to
Thank
have
you
you
so much.
sometime. Please come again. And thanks for
My
sharing.
pleasure.
Dave, you want to say something?
No, it's been a wonderful session. So, if at least one person, listen to this, like I believe currently 200 plus people are listening on X Twitter. So, if at least one of them found this very helpful and they decide to change, it could be a life changer for a kid. So,
Yeah.
I hope that happens.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Don't miss next week's episode where we'll bring another podcast. Until then, stay healthy, stay happy, and take care.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.